You probably have a plan for how this year will end. You map out the projects, set the milestones, and decide exactly how your work should look when it's done. And when an external force, a sudden email, a delayed shipment, or a demanding client, forces you to alter that timeline, something inside you tightens. You grip the schedule harder. Organizational psychologist Adam Grant has spent years studying why we react this way, and more importantly, who actually succeeds over a long career. He identified a profile known as the taker. This is the professional who guards their own time, prioritizing their personal agenda and pushing their deadlines onto everyone else. This is a chart comparing the long-term career success metrics between rigid takers and highly adaptable individuals Grant calls givers. Over time, the givers reliably earn more influence and reach higher levels of achievement. As this section of the data highlights, being a giver is fairly straightforward in low-stakes scenarios. It's easy to sacrifice 5 minutes to review a colleague's presentation. But the extreme test of this theory is more difficult. What happens when a giver is asked to surrender the timeline of their own existence? Generosity is usually seen as sharing wealth. But giving can also mean letting go of the one thing we usually insist on controlling, the schedule. In the winter of 1633, snow covered the tiled roofs of a secluded temple in Korea. The Buddhist master Jinmuk gathered his disciples in the main hall. He sat before them and announced the exact day he would pass away. The room sat in silence until a young novice monk raised his hand from the back row. He didn't offer a spiritual protest. He simply pointed out that the master's chosen day of death conflicted with the temple's busy New Year schedule. Jinmuk didn't reprimand the boy. He considered the logistical burden his death would cause and asked the boy what day would be better for the group. Where a taker would have defended their own milestone, Jinmuk valued the practical needs of his community over his own final deadline. The rescheduled day arrived, and Jinmuk made his preparations to depart. Then the students approached him again. A massive memorial service was happening in the courtyard, bringing a large crowd to the temple grounds. Jinmuk agreed that the timing was still poor. He hung his robe back on its peg and decided to wait. He sat by a window, waiting while the temple event ran its full, noisy course. Only when the crowds dispersed and the courtyard fell quiet did he finally bathe, change into fresh robes, and pass away. He allowed his own end to be rescheduled twice. By abandoning his own agenda, he ensured his death didn't burden the people he left behind. This historical anecdote illustrates the same pattern Adam Grant found in his modern research. People who obsess over rigid personal milestones are often forgotten because those plans only served themselves. Givers stay relevant because they are willing to be inconvenienced. When you prioritize someone else's reality over your own schedule, you build a level of cooperation that a rigid plan cannot produce. Jinmuk's students recorded his story and preserved his name for centuries, largely because he respected their mundane schedules more than his own mortality. Identify the single project, timeline, or milestone you are currently guarding most aggressively. Take that schedule to a key stakeholder or colleague and ask them if those dates actually work for them. If it causes friction for the group, do what most professionals refuse to do. Actually alter your schedule. Lasting impact isn't built by forcing the world to match a calendar. It's built by those with the courage to adjust their plans for the people around them.